Nine o'clock now, and thanks for being with us on this Monday evening, February 27th, as we recap what happened in the courtroom today in the Alex Murdaugh double murder trial. The disgraced former attorney accused of shooting and killing his wife and son in June of 2021. After we go over what happened in the court today, we're going to be joined by two criminal defense attorneys, Brian and Luke Sheely. They're going to give us their take on the latest developments in Walterboro. Well, today, the defense rested their case after calling their three final witnesses. They included two crime scene analysts who contradicted the state's autopsy reports on how the victims were shot. They were followed on the stand by Marvin Murdaugh, one of the defendant's two brothers. But before the defense rested their case today, defense attorney Dick Harpootlian asking the judge if they could take the jury to the scene of the crimes, the murders of Maggie and Paul Murdaugh. Prosecutor Creighton Waters objected, saying the property has changed drastically since the murders because no one lives there anymore or maintains the property. But Judge Newman said he would allow the jury to visit. They're being told the media will not be allowed to be there and no drones will be allowed to fly over the property. This will take place after the state calls its rebuttal witnesses. Lead prosecutor Creighton Waters said that they have 4, maybe 5 rebuttal witnesses to take the stand tomorrow. It's unclear if they will be able to complete that testimony tomorrow. Now, on the witness stand today, Jonathan Eisenstadt. He's a forensic pathologist. He is the former chief medical examiner for the Georgia Bureau of Investigation. He believes that Paul Murdaugh was shot in the back of the head. That is different from the autopsy report, which concluded that the shot came from below. Here's how he described the shot.
To me, this is a contact range shotgun wound to the top of the head that caused extreme pressure buildup in the head from it being contact, leading to these types of fractures, and that the pellets, so the shotgun wound comes in, the wadding will start to open up. All of that pressure basically, for lack of a better term, will explode what's there because the pressure needs to get out somehow. The muzzle of the end of the barrel of the shotgun would be pressed against the skin firm enough that there would be pressure onto the skull, and then you would have blowback as the skull opened up.
As you just saw, there also on the witness stand today, forensic scientist Tim Paulbach. Paulbach also testified that the shot that killed Paul Murdaugh was fired against the back of his head. Paulbach argues that this shot would have stunned the shooter. It's one of several reasons that he believes there were 2 shooters involved that night. Take a listen.
I'm from Connecticut. So I think that the temporal location suggests that these things more probable than not happened fairly quickly, and that the individual who shot first with the shotgun minimally was stunned, probably blood and material in his eyes, and maybe have been injured, and would have taken some degree of time to recover. And lastly, I think there is just a more or less anybody who deals with firearms, a logical argument here. Why would one shooter bring 2 long rifles, 2 long weapons to the event? You can't handle and shoot 2 of them.
Also on the witness stand now, Marvin Murdaugh, the brother of Alex Murdaugh. He testified about the relationship between Alex and Maggie, saying they had a good marriage. Marvin was asked about a phone call he received from his brother while traveling to their parents' home right after the murders.
Marvin Murdaugh. I walked over to the feed room, and y'all have heard the descriptions. Y'all saw it. I've never seen pictures, and I've told them before coming to this court that I was not going to see pictures. But y'all can imagine what I experienced. It had not been cleaned up. I saw blood. I saw brains. I saw pieces of skull. And when I say brains, it could just be tissue. I don't know what I was seeing. It was terrible. And for some reason, I thought it was something that I needed to do for Paul to clean it up. Felt like it was the right thing to do. 15, 20 minutes later, Mark Ball shows up. Y'all heard Mark Ball testify. And he came and hugged me and told me it was okay to leave, What was left of Paul, they would clean it up. It's the hardest thing I've ever been through in my life.
SLED's investigation came under fire during John Marvin's testimony. He spoke about approaching agents with Buster Murdaugh's phone, which had an app that showed where Maggie's phone was located. He also spoke about SLED telling him that there was blood spatter on his brother's shirt from the night of the murders, which turned out, he says, to be false.
And said, hey, I've got Buster's phone here, and it's got an app on it that can find the phone, and it's showing Maggie's phone's right out here. Let's go get it. And he said, no need. We have technology coming later today that we should be able to find it. And it blew me away that I'm sitting here showing them where Maggie's phone is, but they won't take the time to walk with me or take this phone itself. I mean, I'd give them the phone to go find it. They made reference to the shirt that they said Alex was wearing. They told us that it was covered in blood. They went so far as to tell me on the police body cam that he takes his shirt and wipes his face, and that's how they knew that Alex was at the scene, that he was the one.
And under cross-examination, John Marvin Murdaugh was questioned about an interview he gave in August of 2022 where he first saw the kennel video.
Before August of 2022, at that interview, when you heard your brother's voice at the kennels, had he ever told you that he was down there just prior to the murders?
No, sir.
Did he ever tell you that afterwards, after you listened to that video?
No, sir. And I'm trying to think if we've been able to have an opportunity to even speak.
Okay. All right. So you'd agree that if he had not told SLED that was not full cooperation, correct? If he had not told SLED that he was at the kennels just before the murders, he had not actually been fully cooperative.
What's your question?
Would you agree that that is not full cooperation?
By him not telling SLED that he was at the kennel?
Correct.
I would say that yes, he lied.
Okay.
Brian and Luke Sheely are joining us tonight. They are two criminal defense lawyers in the Columbia area. Guys, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Let's dive into what happened today. Where do we begin? All right, the two experts that are saying that Paul Murdaugh was shot in the back of the head. What do you make of that testimony today, as opposed to what the official autopsy results showed?
It was a big help to the defense. It's something that you could see that earlier in the case Dick Harpootlian was trying to get at through particularly the state's pathologist. I found it to be pretty credible, and both of these guys, particularly the pathologist, talked about the mechanism of the injury and how he could discern that this was a contact wound from Paul's top of his head coming down versus down coming up. And one of those ways is that you've got the wound on the shoulder doesn't have any stippling. So you knew it was further away, and it's about how much energy would it have. And so they talked really clearly about a high velocity weapon like a shotgun and the type of energy it would have in a confined space like a skull, and really just talk from experience and science about how it would maybe come back in an unexpected way. But it really helps their theory of having a shooter that should be covered entirely in biological material and blood spatter.
And Brian, another witness on the stand today testifying, he believes there were two shooters the night that these murders took place, which of course would differ than what the state is saying. It was one shooter. It was Alex Murdaugh.
Yeah, that was that crime scene expert who was well-credentialed, well-qualified. He was a very strong witness. And to my brother's point, I mean, this expert basically testified that the close contact wound would have caused a great amount of energy in, which did the fatal blow, and then coming back out. And JR, this was an interesting expert because most crime scene experts that are testifying 2 or 3 years after an event, they never get the advantage of being able to go out to a crime scene. But this was a little bit unique because he was queued up for Friday, the witness order got delayed, and then over the weekend he went out to Moselle and was able to look up at the door frame above where Paul suffered that fatal blow and actually found another pellet, birdshot pellet, that would have been the second kill shot, up in the door frame. So, I mean, That was pretty big. But basically what that speaks to from his perspective, his expert opinion, was that there was so much energy that would have blasted back from this close fatal wound that there had been bone fragment, blood, even pellets from the bird shot that could have stunned and probably injured the assailant, where that person would not have been capable of then almost simultaneously killing Maggie. So he made that reference point, and then there was the two long gun reference point that would be not very probable for someone to come down with two guns, especially when a 300 blackout had the capacity to do the job on both individuals if necessary. So he was pretty important.
How big of it of a deal was John Marvin Murdaugh's testimony today, and the fact that he was trying to clean up the crime scene and had done some, it appears, before he was told, we've got the rest?
It was a big deal for the defense in that he was very credible. Maybe that's because he's not a lawyer. He took pride in that, but he has this sympathetic stories of knowing Paul the way he did, knowing the relationship between Maggie and Alec the way he did, but clearly loving Paul and being forced to be in this situation where he was forced to come back the next day and try to clean up the remains of his nephew. But he did score some points for the defense, and that he started echoing the sentiments about SLED not doing their job, him trying to show them Maggie's phone through Buster's app, them seemed not interested, him marching out there with Duffy Stone, the circuit solicitor, and saying, here. And then it was pretty interesting how he talked about how he was told that his brother's shirt had a lot of blood spatter on it, when we all come to find out that's not the case, and you got to start wondering, well, why is he being told that? So he struck some chords of emotional resonance, and also kind of this distrust of law enforcement and the way they're going about the case.
Brian, do you agree with that assessment there?
I do, and to your question directly, I found it really powerful that he's having this extremely emotional experience that he's reliving on the witness stand, and he said, no father or mother should ever have to do what I had to do that day by cleaning up Paul the next day. And he was a very personal experience for him. It was emotional, and he basically made a vow to himself to find Paul's killer, whatever it took, and that was pretty emotional moment. And Jim Griffin, lay witnesses are not allowed to, comment on the ultimate issue, such in this case, who's the killer. But Jim Griffin said, basically after John Marvin said, and did you ever find the killer? And he said, no, to this day I've never found Paul's killer. So that obviously let the jury know that he supported his brother Alec.
So the defense rests their case today, not before asking about that field trip. We'll talk about that in a moment. But now rebuttal witnesses by the state. They come tomorrow, 4 or 5 witnesses. Any idea who they're thinking about putting back up on the stand, or would they put someone else different on the stand?
We've been trying to rack our brains on this a little bit. I mean, technically a rebuttal case is supposed to be really only responsive to what the defense has put up that's new, to kind of confront that new information. It can't really be to do a better job than you did the first crack at it. So it could be more family, to maybe show some more real light on the situation. Maybe somebody in law enforcement to kind of say, hey, we did do this by the book, and this is not sloppy in any way, kind of maybe more from a policy making or administrative perspective. I don't know. We have been kind of racking our brains. It's going to be interesting.
Any thoughts, Brian?
Yes, I think, Alex Murdaugh did not necessarily need to get up there and explain why he had not told his story yet. I mean, he was charged with murder. He was charged with these other financial crimes. He didn't need to get up on the stand and say, I tried to tell you guys, that I was lying on the kennel video. That was a really tense exchange between Alex Murdaugh and Creighton Waters, where Creighton Waters could kind of get a little indignant. And he was like, oh, you did try to tell us? Did you, Mr. Murdaugh? And so, he's got a Fifth Amendment right to remain silent. There's something that Luke and I have talked about that's called a Doyle violation, when you kind of get alluded to that you could have come out even under the pressure of a charge and waive your Fifth Amendment right to remain silent to tell your story. He doesn't have to do that, and there can't really be an inference in front of the jury that he should have to do that. But I almost feel like Creighton Waters has run the show, and he took a little umbrage to Alex Murdaugh saying, I tried to tell you guys all these things. I almost feel we could have some pushback on some of these investigators and SLED agents to refute any idea that was any kind of truth from Alex Murdaugh.
I haven't seen you guys since Murdaugh took the stand last week, so give me your take. How do you think Alex Murdaugh did on the stand?
I think he is about level. I think the first day, Creighton Waters, by my count, didn't ask one question about the murder itself. It was just literally a day of financial crimes. And I think Murdaugh got to him a little bit, kind of with his homespun folksiness, and Creighton kind of seemed very dry and a little frustrated. But by day 2, I think once he started plowing into the timeline, he started gaining steam. And of course, I think Creighton wanted this earlier, this Matlock moment where you looked this jury in the eye and you told them that you didn't do it, but you also looked 10 other your clients in the eye and told them that you weren't stealing their money. So he didn't quite get that, but just the overwhelming sense of the lies and the theft and the fact that he really lied without a 100% clear, convincing reason about being down there at the kennels. I would say on the balance of things, it would tend to sway towards the state, but it could have been a lot worse, I'll say that. I was expecting, honestly, more information from Alex Murdaugh, more than just maybe it could be someone hyped up with the social media. I was, for him to get off, in my opinion, I think he really needed to just play a card of an unbelievable hand and really shed some light on the situation, which we didn't really hear.
Brian, did it seem to you that Murdaugh was rattled at all on the stand Thursday and Friday?
Thursday, no. I think his team was happy as they could be Thursday because Creighton Waters did not start off well. He was born into the financial stuff. Alex Murdaugh got to kind of show his personality. The next day, Creighton did a little bit better job. And I want to speak to how Creighton ended, but before I say that, I think Alex was rattled for whatever reason on the way the golf cart was parked that he said he came back from the kennels with in an unorthodox fashion per his kind of usage of it. He would always park it on the right, it was parked on the left. Creighton came walking up with an exhibit, a picture of that golf cart parked in an odd way, and that seemed to really kind of throw Alex Murdaugh on this particular issue. I think he would park it on the right the way they normally did to charge it. It was parked on the left like someone who was maybe in a hurried fashion. So that seemed to rattle Alex Murdaugh a little bit. I'll leave it there about why. I think it could tie in closing somehow. But I don't think Creighton Waters did great until the last, honestly, 25 minutes. When he had gotten Alex Murdaugh to commit that the only reason I lied because I started feeling pressure from SLED and the way they had charged Paul and other kind of ancillary issues. And so basically Creighton kind of bit on that and got him to commit. It was the presence of SLED that made you lie about the kennels, right? And just had that, and then had that body-worn camera from the first responding officer where Alex Murdaugh is lying about being down at the kennels, and that was that mic drop moment for Creighton. Mm-hmm. It was really the only one he had in his day and a half cross-examination. But if you're going to end it with a mic drop, he did. So that was good for him.
So are they all in? When I say all in, is the defense all in here with saying, okay, our client is a liar. Our client is a thief, but our client isn't a killer. We admit he's done some bad things, but he hasn't done this, because it seemed over and over and over, he kept talking about, I lied to this person, I lied to that person, I stole from this person, I stole from that person. Just repeatedly telling this to the jury. So basically, are they in an all-in situation here, trying to just say, this is what I did, but I didn't do this?
Right. That's what it had to be, because you have so much evidence of concrete guilt for financial crimes. And they're going to try to convince that jury to really parse it out in closing and say, look, he's going to be held accountable in different courts at different times on all these charges you heard him admit to. But do your job about the charges that are in front of you, and what evidence have you heard of him, as being as the shooter. You don't have the smoking gun, so to speak. You don't have a confession. You don't have a witness. You need these things. They're going to try to really get them to ignore that and just focus on the task at hand, whereas the state will be, you can't believe this man. Who else could it have been? And kind of really go from there. So right. They have to own those lies. If he had come in there and pled the fifth, very bad luck for Murdaugh.
So the jury, they're sitting there, Brian, they're hearing him say, I'm a liar and I'm a thief. How do they believe him when it comes to the bigger charge here of double murder?
So, JR, that's the only way for him to play it. I mean, Luke and I have been kind of calling that since we've been on the show. He's got to testify, and he's got to own up to what is easily provable, the financial crimes. Otherwise, the jury's not going to believe anything that he says throughout his entire testimony. So he did that. He's fallen on his sword. And on that note, JR, there's also a bit of jury nullification in play here by Jim Griffin. So normally, jurors are not allowed to know what a sentence of a charge that you're on trial for carries. They're not allowed to know other charges. But Jim Griffin, basically, since it was in front of the jury, said, and you were charged with all these other financial crimes. Yes, I was, and those are pending. So that kind of lets the jury know he's gotten up here and confessed for a whole day about the financials that are pending charges. He's going nowhere. That way, it kind of reads to them, if you have any doubt in the jury deliberation room about the murder charge, cut him loose, because he's not going anywhere on the financials. So that's the only way he could do it.
Something else big that happened in court today, the defense asking that the jury actually go to Moselle. That's the property owned by the Murdaughs. That is where the crimes took place, down by the dog kennels. Why would the defense want the jury to go to the scene of the crime? The only thing left there now is an abandoned property, from my understanding, that's not being kept up.
Well, it's advantageous for the defense. I mean, they're the ones that are bringing the Pharaoh, the three-dimensional, Mike Sutton trajectories. They're really connecting the line from the quail pen all the way out to that 5'2" shooter. They're connecting the lines. They're really bringing you a lot more graphically measurements and angles and possibilities, whereas the state is basically saying you were there just before, therefore it's you, and they haven't really done much to show how the scene proves Alex Murdaugh did this. So a lot of times just being on scene, a jury can visualize it with their own eyes. They can see what we heard today from the crime scene expert, that it seems a lot smaller. Mm-hmm. So you might sit there standing in the doorway as a juror and go, wow, this is where Paul Murdaugh was shot by his assailant, and look how close Maggie would have been. Look what she would have seen. Man, I think, if there's one person doing this, she would have been running for the hills, even if it was her husband. So I think it allows them to fully assess the facts with the evidence they've heard in court. And it's kind of a rare thing. I've been practicing law for 17 years and asked this question amongst several judges over my time when I thought it really mattered, and have not had that granted. So it was good to see Judge Newman kind of not hold back and say, you know what, if this helps the jury, I don't want to stand in the way of that. And of course, the state did object, and they have their reasons, which are probably for things like, I think we heard a lot of objection about the trees growing since then. So they're thinking it looks more obscure perhaps from the main house than it might have been back in the day. So, but it's happening, and it's a pretty unique thing, mostly because it takes a lot of manpower and resources and security as well in a, let's say, normal murder trial, but this is not a normal murder trial.
Brian, your brother did mention it. The prosecution did object to this visit to Moselle, which will probably take place, we believe, sometime on Wednesday. We're not sure yet. It's after the state has their rebuttal witnesses. But on that note, as your brother mentioned, this isn't something that happens a lot in court, is it?
Never. It's certainly a request that any side can ask, but like my brother says, it normally requires a significant amount of manpower, security. The identities of the jurors can't be known. They're gonna have to block off the road, secure any drone photography. They're gonna have to take their time with it. It'll probably take a lot longer than we even anticipate, but it's so important. And if I'm the defense, I really want this. All the physical evidence concerning the crime scene has mostly been brought by the defense to develop their theory of a two-shooter defense. For instance, the crime scene investigator today that got to go out to Moselle over the weekend, he got to be kind of a star, showing a pellet in the door frame that SLED missed. And I guarantee you, each and every single one of those jurors is going to go to that spot and look up at that pellet, and it's going to. So details like that matter, and whatever details from the scene that each side think are significant will be played to the jury. I guarantee you, if there's not a single person of the prosecution or the defense that hasn't been out to Moselle, they certainly will. because they're going to want to be able to take it all in. I'm sure both teams have been, but it is a unique moment. It's a rare moment, at least in South Carolina, to get out to a crime scene in the middle of a jury trial.
But do you guys think the defense has planted some doubts here with the jury?
I do. Whether it gets them past the overwhelming evidence that this guy is a bad guy and he's a liar and he's a thief due to all the financial crimes, I don't know. Those things are very difficult to reconcile. I mean, I was in my doctor's office today and I was talking to the nurse who was taking my blood pressure, and she knows I'm a lawyer, and she asked me, and I let her talk mostly, and she's like, oh yeah, he's guilty. He's such a bad guy. Look at all the money he stole. And then my doctor came in and said, you know what, I listened all the way on a long drive last week, and I think he's innocent. They haven't brought me any evidence of the actual murder. So you're going to have folks just like that on that jury wrestling over, well, he's so bad he must have done it, which technically that's not the reason they should be considering that evidence. It's supposed to be for motive. And others going, well, I haven't seen, they say it's proof beyond a reasonable doubt, and I haven't seen that on the murder. Sure, I've got it on these. So you're going to have a real battle back there and a lot of horse trading and debating, which is the American process.
Right. All right. So again, that visit to Moselle, the Murdaugh property where the crimes took place, probably happening Wednesday, we believe. No media will be allowed. No drone flights over the property. They're going to have to secure that scene tight before they get the jury out there. So after the jury goes there, let's just take it a step further. Depending on when this wraps up Wednesday, what are we looking at here, Brian, as far as the rest of the week after that?
Yeah, once the jury goes there, we'll have, jury charges. The law will be debated about what gets brought back to the jury. Judge Newman does it in written form. Mm-hmm. So we'll have a charging conference is what it's called. That can often last a good amount of time. And then, we're going to have closing arguments. We're going to have closing arguments, which will be the last time to, if you're the defense, really empower the jury to consider all aspects of reasonable doubt. If you're the state, you're going to be relying on your narrow timeline. You're going to be relying on the financial crimes, and you can't trust this guy who's clearly a liar. And then
the kennel video.
And the kennel video. Once a liar, always a liar is what the state will be saying. So, and then they'll have to collect all the massive amounts of exhibits and evidence and video footage and go back and do their duty and really wrestle with this.
That kennel video, you mentioned that kennel video seems to be, if there's a smoking gun in this case, that kennel video's got to be it right now, right?
It's their best piece of evidence, simply because it puts them there so close in time to the murders, as best as we can tell from the cell phone usage, and just quite simply the fact that he lied about it repeatedly to anybody and everybody. The state loves that. That's why we counsel our clients to not speak with law enforcement right after a crime such as this, because then they can't get you in that lie. But if they've got that, they will run with it. And it's good evidence because people often lie because they're guilty.
All right, Brian, Luke, Sheely, guys, want to thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Testimony will resume tomorrow morning at 9:30, and as always, we will be there. You can watch on WLTX Plus, you can watch on our YouTube channel, and you can watch on our website, WLTX.com. And of course, we'll have complete coverage for you tomorrow night right here on News 19. We'll see you then.